Hello everybody, Big Seven here, back for another SuperCoach AFL video. And it's been a good week, another good week for myself, lifting myself into the top 1,000 now, season rank at exactly 1,000. I scored 2,422 for the week, and a few things went wrong, but I feel like, comparatively speaking, my team's in a pretty good position, and looking forward to the rest of the season going forward. So let's get into the team. I made 3 trades last week. Not ideal. I had to trade out Took Miller after trading him in the week before. Pretty unfortunate. I brought in Tom Stewart, who did fairly well on debut. I then decided to trade out LDU. He was someone I was probably going to trade out. I was fairly sure that he was playing injured, and he missed a game with injury this week as well. I've had enough. I brought in Zach Merritt, who I'll go through him in a sec, but was supposed to be a safe pick, and now there's a worrying sign there. And the third trade, I decided I wanted to get Seamus Mitchell. I couldn't just be doing two sideways. I needed to get that rookie in, especially with the lack of rookies on the horizon. So Phillips to Seamus Mitchell. Mitchell got subbed, but it is what it is. We'll go through the team fairly quickly. So this is exactly how it lined up as well. So Dacos 72, I think he copped a cork in the game and also got tagged by Keys. Still less than what we were expecting. His average goes down to 126. Bust pick. Tom Stewart brought him in this week for 123. I think he was on about 110 at half, three-quarter time. So it's a little bit unfortunate he didn't go on with it, but he's looking like a must-have in defense. And if he puts up 123 each week, we will be happy. Sicily, maybe he's found a bit of form. Maybe it was more of maybe it was just a small dip rather than a slump. Looking back, and one of the games where he only scored 90 was at Norwood Oval, where pretty much I looked at quite a few defenders and they all underperformed in that game, those games as well. So maybe I can find some excuses for his dip in form. He looks close to back. Maybe not as strong as he was last year, but still should be safe for 105 plus, I think. 128, getting back on the right track. Sheasel, he bounced back from last week, 107. He's someone I think I want to hold through the season, looking very good still. McKenna with a 70, and that's actually a good thing because we saw Daniel Rich get injured late in that game, and if he was to miss a couple of games, which does seem like the case, then McKenna is likely to be the player that gets the kicking duty. So you can probably add 15, 20 points to that score, and maybe with Rich out, he can start going, 80, 85. So 70 is break even is now 48. So if I had the trades, I probably would have traded him out last week, but I guess the silver lining to having to trade out Took and LDU is that I've kept McKenna, and now I might be able to squeeze out another 50k, maybe even 100k if we get lucky. Cowan, he was managed. I don't think he makes his way back into the side, so he's expendable. But I used him to loophole. I loopholed Wilmot and Young, took the 63 from Wilmot. And that's pretty good because, and he was another one that I thought was expendable, had to keep due to circumstance. And the break even is 48, so it's achievable. Maybe we can find another 20, 30k out of Wilmot before moving him on. And then Tyler Young bounced back from a poor score last week, 57, break even of 40. He has a little bit more cash to be made. Midfield, and Bontempelli, 122. Once again, another player that hasn't gone nuts against Hawthorn. And I guess you can extend that to the Rock as well, because Tim English only went a 90. So whatever Hawthorn are doing, it is stopping these high level midfielders from scoring well. And I guess you can extend that to Rockman now. So 122, still good from the Bont. Break even's pretty low. Not that that really matters. John Dawson, 150. What a joy this player is to own and watch. Um, what did we pay? 605,000 at the start of the year for 125 average. Absolutely phenomenal. The third player, Clayton Oliver, who I ended up captaining. I put the vice captaincy on Dunkley because mids have been doing very well against Fremantle. He only went 109, wasn't going to be enough. So Clayton Oliver really coasted to 134. And, players that can coast to 134, they are must-haves. And then I had Taranto in my midfield, 140. He's now the F1 for the year. He's been great. No reason not to start him. Zach Merritt, it's another poorly traded premium. It's another poorly timed premium trade in. Bit of a tongue twister there. 91, and yeah, Essendon rolled Jake Stringer through stoppages a lot more than they have in recent weeks. I think he had 80% CBAs, and a guy like Stringer, I just don't think has that tank to be able to do that for multiple weeks on end. So I'm hoping it was a 1 week thing where Brad Scott has tried to one up his brother, throw something different in there, a bit more of a bigger bodied midfield. But yeah, that ended up being at the expense of Merritt and Shields mid-time. Shield was the main victim, although Merritt did go from down to, I think he only had about 30 or 40% CBAs. So I'm hoping that Merritt goes back to, I'm hoping that Essendon go back to what their midfield structure was in the early part of the year with Setterfield, Merritt, Parrish, and Shield basically being the big four in midfield. Although I think Stringer will continue to chip in a bit. Hopefully it's not too much though, and it's only at the expense of Shield. So Merritt, a bit of a nervous hold now. After I thought it was a really safe pick to bring in, especially being off a suspension, the rest of his team on a 5-day break. I would have thought that he would have been one of the last players moved out of that midfield, but it is what it is. Not inside the inner sanctum, obviously, and Essendon obviously had other plans. Tom Green, 118, and that's pretty good after a string of not terrible scores, but kind of underwhelming scores. 118, that's pretty good from Thomas. Jacob Hopper, 71, and he's just been scoring. His scoring has been a bit like a yo-yo. Someone that, if you look at the break-even, he's got a break-even of 90, could move on from him. But he comes up against West Coast, whose midfield is, it's basically Tim Kelly and nothing else. So Hopper, a clear hold for the matchup for me. And then Ashcroft, 103. I was speaking about him as a trade out, as someone you could potentially trade out last week. I wanted to hold him for the Fremantle matchup, and this is why. 103, kicked probably goal of the year as well. What a young star he is. The midfield bench, Matty Johnson, 53, suspended for a couple of weeks for a sling tackle. He looks okay at the level. I think with how bad Fremantle are going as well, I'm hoping they continue to blood him after he returns back from his suspension. But yeah, he just is a bit raw. A few occasions where he dropped marks and misses handballs. The tackle on Zorko was clumsy, to say the least. So you can see the talent with the kid, but just needs to refine his game a little bit. The Ruckman, and finally this feels like a massive win. Sean Darcy 114. A lot of people have English instead, and he only went 90. And then Rowan Marshall. Oh, I've been so frustrated with him. He's had a couple of easy kill matchups. I think he played. Who did he play? He played Collingwood with no ruckman and scored like 120, and it was just you would have hoped he did more. And then he played Gold Coast with a first gamer as a ruck and only went 90 and got subbed. So I was just expecting something to go wrong with Marshall. Some wise people loopholed him for the vice captaincy. I loopholed him to go on field, to be an emergency loophole because it was just like the way Rowan has been. It was just like, would I have been surprised if something else wrong happened with him? Not really. So, um, look, I'm not disappointed that I missed the 159 as vice captain and I've only lost 25 points with Oliver. I'm just happy he's found some form. Forward line. Josh Dunkley, vice captain, 109. He was good. He's been good in pretty much all games, but he just hasn't had any of those ceiling games that we saw when he was at the Dogs. I have a gut feeling that one is around the corner. I'm not going to vice captain him for it, but I feel like we're going to see a Josh Dunkley 150 game in the near future. Connor Rosey, 96, solid. Zeeble, he spent a bit of time off the ground. I think it was with a calf complaint, and he's getting x-rays on it, but he played out the game. He looked okay. I'm expecting him to suit up, and 360k I think I paid for Zeeble, and it looks like he's going to be a keeper. So 100 average, just keep going along with that, and I will be happy. Errol Gordon bounced back from last week, 119. The role isn't as good as we expected, but he still scored okay. So, look, if he can go 95 for the season, I think you just take that at the price we paid. Fergus Green, 28, disappointing. Should have had a kick from the top of the goal square for a goal if his arms didn't get karate chopped by Taylor Jurea. And if he kicks that, maybe it's probably a 40, 45 score instead of a 28. But it is what it is. Can't complain about Ferg after he's been delivering pretty much every other week for me on field. But now with a break even of 57, I think it's time to move on from him. He does have a matchup against Fremantle. He could score well, but he's someone I think I'm ready to bid farewell to. Samson Ryan, 71. Didn't watch this game, but I was kind of following his scores along, and I don't remember what he was on at three-quarter time, but he had a massive final quarter. From what I've heard, looks good when he's in the ruck, and I'm not sure why Ben Miller's in the side. Ideally, we would like to see Soldo probably getting 60-65% ruck time and Samson Ryan getting the rest, rather than what it was on the weekend with Soldo, I think getting 55-60%, maybe a bit underdone coming back from the injury. And then it meant 20% for Ryan and 20% for Miller. I'm just hoping that Miller gets dropped from the side, and Samson, he could have a day out this week. Coming up against West Coast, Bailey Williams isn't much of a ruck opponent. So hoping that Samson Ryan has a fair bit more cash left to make. Davey, he was rested, and no real reason to keep him other than I had other players to trade out. And Seamus Mitchell, he actually looked good, and then for whatever reason was subbed out halfway through the third quarter. It was a tactical sub. I'm just not sure what the tactics are behind it, as I'm not sure the tactics around Sam Mitchell. I mean, Sicily coming off in dying moments of games. Seamus Mitchell, who he was doing a good job on Cody Waitman from what I saw. And what else is there? Cam McKenzie's development. Do the AFL Integrity Unit need to investigate? That is a interesting question. So, for the meantime, Seamus Mitchell 41. I just hope he's named next week. I need his cash basically. He's got a low break even, but if he was named as sub next game, then oh boy, cash gen is looking shaky. And as it is for a lot of people, really. I have a team value of about 12.5 mil, 150k in the bank, and that's definitely above average. And just looking forward to the future, where is this next gen, this next wave of cash gen happening? And we're hoping it was going to be Johnson. He's suspended. Roberts got injured. Seamus Mitchell, he could dry up really quick. And then rookies for this week. There's only really one good rookie. So I'm going to go into the trades now. The player I'm going to get rid of is Davey. The reason for that, he might come back this week, but he has a break even of 32. I would prefer to get rid of Cowan, who's got a break even of 40. But if I'm going to make two trades, which is what I'm pondering at the moment, I think I'm going to need the extra 7k from Alwyn Davey. So the rookie that, and this is assuming he's named as well. There's no guarantee that he gets named, but Alex Chincotta, I think is how you say the name. He's been scoring well, and I'm hoping that, firstly, the SuperCoach website stops being so slow. But secondly, that Chincotta can hold his spot and make a fair bit of cash. So in order to do that, so I'll be trading a forward out. So we'll put, I think it's Toronto. Is it this way or the other way? I think it's the other way. I don't remember which order I did it in. Yes, it's like this. Yeah. So we bring in Chincotta. And that leaves me with 253k in the bank. And what I do with the second and possibly even third trades is what is interesting. So I want to rearrange the field to basically align with how I want it long term. So if I go Shema. I just realized that first trade was meant to be Fergus Green instead of Davey, but that doesn't. I'm going to change that back actually, just to give a better indication of what I'm planning. So update that trade. Yeah, so Fergus Green is the one that definitely goes for me this week. I think he's topped out in price, and I'm not willing to cop a 20k price drop if he goes in the 20s again. And so looking at the team, this is not optimal in terms of how I want to field it at the moment, but this is kind of how I'm thinking from a long-term perspective. Dawson, Dacos, Stewart, and Sicily, those are the back four that I will be going with. And so that gives me two defender spots to fill out. The forward line, I think the defenders are better than the forwards. So I probably want to keep this 6 unless there's someone really cheap. Like, if Cornelio was to get back below 500, then I'd probably bring him in and swing a Sheezel or Zeeble back into defense. Caniglio, he's at 530 at the moment, which is a little bit of a discount on his starting price. But I think I only want him if he's below 500. So this is likely going to be the six that I roll with for the longer term part of the season. And the only other player that I think can throw a spanner in the works is Christian Petrarca. If he gets forward eligibility, which I think he was on the cusp of getting at the conclusion of round 5, then he almost becomes a must-have. So in that case, I would have Zeeble or Sheezel go back to defense. But yeah, realistically, not looking to get any forwards in. It means I've got 2 defenders I need to get in at some point, and either 3 or 4 premium midfielders I need to bring in. Depends if I hold Hopper through the season. I don't think he's a season-long hold, but he might end up being that way if we're absolutely desperate. So with Fergus Green out of the side, it gives me 326k. So I can go get rid of Cowan. That gives me 530k. There's a few cheap options that are definitely on the pod side that I would consider bringing in. So I'll sort. Luke Ryan, I'll mention him. I think he's someone I want to bring in, but I don't think the price is right. A player with his scoring profile, he normally puts together a good stretch of games and then can drop a 50 or a 60 and tank his price. So I don't mind Luke Ryan as an option, but I don't think he's the one. He's not the one that I want, not at that price anyway. I think the 5th defender I want is probably Adam Sard, but it's the wrong time to get him, coming off 2 sub-100 scores. And both of them, you'd say, unlucky. Got subbed out against West Coast last week and got injured against Adelaide, minor hamstring. And that in itself can be a bit worrisome, but he's a guy that has been very durable over the course of his career. The fact that I think he only missed 1 week and then obviously was subbed out early, he must be fine. So the break-even's 137 and he's 556k. So I think he's a player I want next week or the week after. He could score okay this week as well, but Brisbane have got Charlie Cameron. I want to see what Carlton do in terms of defenders. Do they put Adam Sard on him and make him play lockdown? And if so, then that scares me for later on because they'd probably do the same. They might do the same for Tom Papley and might do the same for Cosy Pickett as well. So Sard is a definite watch for me. He's someone I'm pretty keen on. Luke Ryan, if the price is right. Jack Sinclair. And he's not as good as last season, I don't think. They're not feeding him as much as they did last year, mainly due to a change in game plan. But I still think he's a 105 guy. So at 540, he's okay too. Who else is there? Will Powell, back-to-back big scores, got the good bye. His injury history is a bit worrying. He does have kick-ins. 0.2%. He would be a big pod. I'm not sure if I'm willing to take that risk. Will Day, I think... Oh, I've scrolled way too far. Will Day, I think he's 100 to 105 average guy, and I think last week was the week to get him. There isn't enough value in the pick now. Um, Dan Rioli, maybe. I think he might have given away a 50-meter penalty last week as well. 500k, maybe only goes 100. Um, Hayden Young, 90 average. I think the safe route is to go two of Ryan, Sard, and Sinclair long term. But none of them I can get with Cowan's money. And I can't even get any of them with Davies' money either. So I think if I'm going to use only one trade, I wouldn't be able to get any of these defenders. If we go into midfielders, who is there? Let's have a look at my tier list. Yeah, this is pretty much how I've got. So the defenders, I pretty much just mentioned all of my tier 2 guys there. Mills is an option if he gets defense eligibility. I don't think it's likely at the moment, despite the fact he's played 2 games down back. He's on the monitor list though. So it's just, do I want to go for any of these tier 3 guys? And maybe Doherty, but he's only just come back from injury. Not sure about the role. I'm not really too thrilled by any of those tier 3 guys, apart from maybe a Hayden Young. But still, yeah, not thrilled about it. Midfield, Rory Laird, I need to get at some point. Although it sounds like he's playing injured, so going to add it if fit. Because if he isn't fit, then he's probably in that tier 2 category. Merritt maybe cops a downgrade after his lack of CBAs this week, although it's a wait and see. Lockie Neal and Sam Walsh, those are the other guys in tier 2. Sam Walsh, 612. I'd need to make another trade. Sarong's there as well. I've got him in tier 3, but he's probably on the cusp of tier 2, tier 3 for me. I think the boat's kind of sailed on him. I think he might be 110 from here on out, and I'm not going to pay 615k for that. Lockie Neal, 638. I think the break-even's fairly high as well, but again, I would need to break the bank for that. So, yeah, 164 break-even against Carlton. So, I'm breaking the bank for a tier 2 guy. I'll go through other rookies in a bit, but I'm not thrilled by them. In fact, I'm pretty low on the rookies, but I'll go through them in a bit later. So 530k, it means I'd have to go for a tier 3 midfielder, I think, if I don't want a defender, and I don't think I do. I think I probably want Sard next week or the week after, or maybe Sinclair next week or the week after, and potentially save a spot for Mills. So at least a midfielder. Brayshaw hasn't recaptured his scoring. Sarong too injured. Mills could go early on him. Let's sort by the price. But he's slightly more than 531k. I think he's 534. Yeah, 534. So I'd be 3,000 short of him if I did Cowan out. But I could get rid of Davey as well, especially if Davey doesn't come back into the side. Then, or if he came back as a sub, then he would definitely be the one to trade out. So I get rid of Cowan. Geez, it's slow. I just Davey out. Oh boy. It's all going wrong. Davey. Let me chuck Cowan out. Reset. And Roberts. There we go. So if I did Davey, oh my God. Yeah, if I did Davey out instead, I would be able to afford Callum Mills. His break-even's still fairly high, though, at 128, and I want to see him at least have one good game before he comes back, before he comes into my side. He's someone I really like. He's super talented. Normally, scores well, but just been moving all over the place. Had to play defense last couple of weeks. We probably prefer him in the midfield. Tough game against Collingwood coming up, and then it gets a bit easier after that. So maybe he's a player I bring in next week, depending on how he goes against the Pies. Who else is there? Jack Steele. He's a super interesting pick. He looked awful in his first game coming back from injury, but from what I saw on Friday night, he looked back to close to his best. 11 tackles, and there was some concerns around his tackling earlier in the year. And he is someone that has performed at a very high level in the past. So I think Jack Steele, he's kind of the layup pick. And yeah, if I did Davey to Steele, it gives me exactly 1,000 left in the bank. Other options, Petrarca, and I don't mind him, but he's just a bit expensive off one trade. Parrish, don't want a second Essendon midfielder. Cripps normally fades out second half of the year. Green, I've already got him. McRae, need to see what the Dogs midfield mix is like with Liberatore back in the side. Josh Kelly, not quite yet. If he's a bit cheaper, I'll consider. And then LDU, he's not fit. Not going near him. So that would allow me to get Jack Steele from Davey. And there are some other options. One that I mentioned last week, Braden Fiorini. Do we need his cash generation? And I'll take any cash gen I can get at the moment. His break-even's fairly low. He scored well against Richmond, but I don't think his role is conducive to the kind of average we need. If I was bringing him in now, I'd probably want 100k from him, and to do that, he'd need to average about 90. It looked like he was playing a fair bit of wing, and from what I saw, and Gold Coast were dominating possession. Fiorini got a lot of chip marks. I don't think it holds up going forward. It's a bit of a scary fade. He only had 18% CBAs compared to the last couple of weeks of 45. So if he got his CBAs back, then he'd be a frightening preposition to fade. But if he doesn't, then I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 70, 75, maybe makes 40, 50k, and it's just an awkward price range that I'm trading him in, and I'm trading him in instead of making an upgrade. So I can definitely see some appeal behind Fiorini. I don't think I can go there myself. And look, I've been looking for pretty much anything to do that will make cash this week. Steele, he's a solid upgrade. His break-even's in the 120, so it's not something I have to do this week. I guess it is if I want to bring in Sard next week, though. And Steele has a matchup against North Melbourne, who have been getting towed up by midfields in recent times. But it's just, okay, if I want to do a third if I want to use my last boost, which I'm not sure if I do, who do I bring in? And the options for rookies are pretty appalling. And it's scary because like I alluded to maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, this second wave of rookies, Johnson, Roberts, Seamus Mitchell, they're just not making the money that we kind of need for that second bounce to be able to move aggressively to a fully premium side before the buys. And so I'm thinking that, if the rookies aren't there, the cash gen isn't there, then what can we do? We've just got to slow things down a bit, not try and push it. So actually, I'm going to complete these trades. I'll move to the players interface. So that gives me 1,000 left over. It's the way I'm leaning to at the moment. Definitely not completely sold on it. Teams obviously could throw a spanner in the works. Imagine Chincotta wasn't named. That would be carnage. So we'll look at some break evens pretty quickly. So yeah, Chincotta with a negative 97 break even. Constable negative 52, obviously not playing. Ben King, two back-to-back good games. We've seen him drop 20s and 30s this year, though. He could only be good for one price rise. Sam Simpson's interesting at 166k. I'm not 100% sure if I want to go for him or not. It's an expensive price to pay for a rookie, especially one that's playing pretty much exclusively forward. So I haven't decided if I'm desperate enough to use a boost to bring in Simpson. A lot of it will probably depend on which rookies are named on Thursday night. If I'm desperate, I could see myself going Simpson. He's someone I'd prefer not to pick, though. Especially a guy just playing pure forward. 58 last week. It's not that enticing. If it was 123k, sure, but that extra 40k is a bit annoying. Wagner, if he comes back, then he's a desperation play. Angwin, he's okay. I think he has the job security, but he isn't going to score that well. I think he's on a wing. So it's averaging 50. I wouldn't be surprised if it stays at 50. Maybe slow burns to 220k. Maybe I just have to do it. Again, it just depends on which other rookies are named on Thursday night. Definitely not someone I'm thrilled to bring in, especially if it comes at the expense of a boost, but it might be the only option. And then who else is there? Teakle, you can't tell me. You can't guarantee that he'll get named. Moyle not named. Ned Long didn't get named last week. Ward, keep forward. Not for me. And really, it's just not much else. So I think, whether or not I use a third boost will depend on how many rookie debuts we get. Keeping in mind that I probably want to downgrade next. I probably want to do one up, one down next week, and then the week after. So if there's only one good rookie that debuts next week, then we'll be in trouble for future weeks. So it's really about at this part of the stage, at this part of the season, it's about balance for me. How do I balance the rookies that I have to put on field? We'll go and optimize this side. Not the greatest optimization, got to be honest, because I would. Oh my god. 'Cause I would go. I'm happy enough to field Samson Ryan this week against West Coast. So I'm pretty much forced to go that 6 in defense. Forced to play one of Chincotta and Wilmot and loop the other one. I think I prefer Chincotta. Johnson not going to be named. Assuming Cowan isn't named. And then, yeah, I can loophole Samson Ryan and Seamus Mitchell, I think. Yeah, Samson Ryan playing on the early Saturday slot. So if he does well, I can put Matty Roberts on field for Seamus Mitchell. And I think I like this team. Um, Essentially 4 rookies and Hopper that need to be fielded. McKenna, he could score 80 odd with Rich out of the side. Happy to field him. Wilmot, not Wilmot, Ashcroft. Obviously, yeah, averaging 80, fine with that. And then Hopper against West Coast, pretty fine with that. Hoping he bounces back. One of Samson Ryan or Seamus Mitchell, it's probably going to be Samson Ryan, and I'm expecting him to do well against West Coast. And then the last one is just the toss-up between Chincotta and Wilmot. And I think the field is strong enough, not being forced to field a Seamus Mitchell, unless Samson Ryan does poorly. Not being forced to field a Tyler Young, having the option to loophole Wilmot. I think, yeah, I'm fairly happy with this side in the short term. It's just the long term that's pretty worrying. If I go back to that buy plan, which isn't that. So this is assuming Sheasel and Zeeble are keepers. I've got 19 trades left, and essentially I've got 4 rookies plus Hopper to get off field. And cash does look a bit tight. I've kind of grouped players in together. Might not necessarily be the order that I'd trade them. But yeah, Hopper and Cowan, it gets me, a 520k player plus whatever else Hopper makes. So maybe a 550-ish player. McKenna and Wilmot. 450. Maybe Wilmot makes another 20. Hopefully McKenna. I don't want to sound too optimistic, but if he can make 80k, that'd be great. That gets me another upgrade. Ashcroft and Tyler Young, maybe that gets me to another 550k player as well. And it's just those last 2 that are a bit shaky. Not that the others aren't shaky, but the last 2 definitely more than others. Samson Ryan and Seamus Mitchell, I need them to make essentially, 2 to 300k more than what they've made. Not sure if that happens. And then Matty Johnson, Chincotta, how much can they make? Can they make 400 between them? It's probably a bit optimistic, but everyone's going to be in this spot. Who are the other cheap players that we can bring in to generate cash? So there isn't really a lot. So really hoping that we get some good rookies soon, or even just one of those, maybe just a mid-pricer with a good role. Fiorini, I thought, was a good chance of being that player, but on closer inspection, he looks to be playing more wing than CBA, and it's just going to be tough. So with that in mind, do I want to go someone cheaper than Steele? Could do, I think 537k is a pretty good deal for Steele, though. Maybe I get Sard next week, and then maybe I think about some of these tier 3 defenders, like, maybe Dan Rioli or Dale. Redmond will be cheap. Hayden Young, potentially. What prices Doherty get to? Maybe reevaluate those kind of picks in a couple of weeks' time and kind of bury the head in the sand for now. And, yeah, that sums up kind of where I'm thinking in terms of trades, both, short term and long term. We'll go into captaincy, and captaincy is pretty important. Part of the reason why I am as highly ranked as I am, I think I'm averaging about 135 from captains, so 8 more points than if I had have just left the seat on Bontempelli all year. So what am I going to do? Carlton Brisbane seems like an avoid game. Richmond against West Coast. Tim Taranto's been in pretty good form. I think I'd probably just slap a VC on him. There are others. I guess I'll go through them. Stewart at GMHBA Stadium, but Adelaide are a good opposition. Maybe that's just an avoid as well. Clayton Oliver, I've got the captain on. I didn't pay 700k to not slap the captaincy on him in a matchup that should be fairly easy. Bontempelli, he's always an option. I could go Vice Oliver into captain Bontempelli. But I'm going to say that I'm pretty confident in Oliver as a captain. I'm expecting 150. So I'll take the free hit on Taranto early on. If he goes 135 plus, then I just take it. But I've got a good feeling about Clary this week. Who else is there? Fremantle against Hawthorn. Hawthorn, I mentioned them, trap matchup. Bontempelli, he only went 122 against them. One of the only good scores. So not anyone. So yeah, not a matchup where I'm looking to captain anyone against. Who else is there? Merritt, can't do him with the role. Dacos, he's always an option, but I think I said it last week. I'm just going to find excuses not to captain him every week. And yeah, not much else. So I think that sums it up. Taranto into Oliver. We'll see if I stay true to that. And we'll see if I stay true to Steele as well. I mean, yeah, maybe... I think, seeing which rookies are named, trying to make an evaluation based off that will determine whether I boost or not. If I do boost, then I'll probably keep Davey, get rid of Cowan, and maybe... Who else do I get rid of? Could potentially get rid of Matty Roberts. I mean, it's pretty bad. But he is a dead rookie, and at least Chesser will come back in the near future. Maybe it's Roberts out. I don't know. There's still a lot to play out this week. I'm definitely going to be going crazy over the next couple of days, trying to figure out what it is I actually want to do, and then having those plans turned upside down by team selection. So, that sums it up for me. Thanks very much for watching, as per usual. Appreciate everybody that does watch it. Wish you all the best with your teams for this week and future weeks. And I will see you for the next video.